Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this virtual session. I am Josh Chung from People Matters, and I'm going to be your host for today. So let me start off by setting the context for this session. With many organizations looking ahead to a post-pandemic era, which is filled with new ways of work, employee experience will be a top priority. And when it comes to offering the best employee experience, organizations are looking for the best digital tools to solve critical HR challenges, range from adapting to hybrid workplaces to driving engagement, and most importantly, the well-being of their employees. At People Matters Employee Experience Conference APAC 2021, Microsoft covered key strategies and insights around adapting to the hybrid workplace, investing in the right HR tech platform, building EX centered on D&I, and leveraging technology to drive employee engagement, skilling, and well-being. So for those of you who attended EX APAC, and for everyone who's joining us for the first time today, I'm sure the first question in your mind is, then how do we go about it? How do we implement these strategies and use these insights to create a great employee experience in a hybrid workplace? So continuing with our endeavor to provide actionable insights and thoughts to our community, People Matters in partnership with Microsoft presents this exclusive session, which will help you understand how to leverage digital tools in your organizations to jumpstart a great EX. So I'm very excited to welcome our speakers for today. Joyce Wong, who is HR Director at International SOS, and also Qinglei Lim, who is a Customer Success Manager at Microsoft Singapore. So welcome, Joyce and Qinglei, thank you for joining us today. Very excited to hear your insights on today's topic.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Welcome. So before we get started, a very quick note to our attendees today. If you have any questions during the session, please feel free to post them in the chat window, and we'll bring them up towards the end of the session during audience Q&A. So now, without further ado, let me open the Q&A round with our speakers with my first question. So good morning, Joyce. The first question is for you. What are some of the challenges in EX that need to be addressed to offer a holistic employee experience to employees?
Yep, a great question and very relevant, right, in today's time, especially with COVID and everyone having to work from home. So all the more now we live in a virtual world, and in a virtual world, employee engagement can be quite challenging because being humans, we need that people touch, right? And when people come on board, new people, it's even more challenging. So from an engagement standpoint, what we've learned here in International SOS is to create as many touch points as possible between the employees, the managers, and with HR, right? And we use multi platforms in terms of creating these touch points. So it could be a simple call, video conferencing, sending care packages to employees, right? And what we've done is also to make sure that the experience virtually is as real as possible. We've provided tools to employees to enable them to have a suitable virtual office at home. And we do recognize that in the multi-locations that we have, infrastructure may not be the same, right? If it's in Myanmar, in Malaysia, in Mongolia, Singapore, it's all different. So we actually customize and get feedback from employees what is suitable for them. And one of the other things that we've done in terms of upping our engagement game is to include the families, because when you're working from home, there's there's no way around excluding the family. So part of our engagement is to include the families, and when we do care packages and when we do things like medical advisory and support, it includes the families as well, right? So that's basically how we've been managing this new way of working. And I think what we are starting to prepare ourselves for is when people start coming back to the office. That's going to be another set of new challenges that we're going to have in terms of employee engagement again.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to be a big challenge about facilitating the safe return to work, right? As a key challenge. So now that you've covered a couple of challenges that organizations face, with EX, and when you move on to implementing these EX initiatives, how do we then generate participation for all of the initiatives that we run, right? Either it being for well-being or engagement. without being forceful? So I think I'll pose that question to Ching first, and then I'll come back to you, Joyce.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Josh. I think, Joyce rightfully pointed out some of the really big challenges top of mind that a lot of CHRO have. And this is not new to any organization, even in Microsoft. We are finding challenges in engaging employees in what we call a hybrid setup. Right, you're gonna have employees who are working from home. You're gonna have employees that are working in office. Right, how do we make sure that we are not creating silos? We are making sure that the culture that we want to penetrate across the entire organization flows. One of those key things and the learnings that we are seeing in Microsoft is how do we leverage on existing collaboration tools where our employees are on, and to bring to bring tools, capabilities, engagement platforms to these tools and platforms that are in place. One of those interesting things is this is not something new actually. If we look at existing when we were pre-COVID, when we were all still working in office, we tend to organize employee engagement events and we host them in pantries, we host them around the office, bringing it to where our colleagues are working in. Today, everyone is virtual. For many of our customers, they are leveraging on Microsoft Teams and they are working, collaborating on it. Where we are seeing good wins and good, interesting case studies from our customers is how do they bring some of these employee experience activities and even initiative into Teams itself, where people are collaborating, working, and it becomes something that is way and part of life for them. So that's really how we are seeing the change in this employee experience in a hybrid setting going to look like in that sense.
That's great. So what I'm hearing is, you're really incorporating these initiatives into their kind of way of life instead of forcing on people and saying, hey, we should have like a catch up tonight. It's really weaving that into their personal experience. That's great to hear. And how about you, Joyce? How are you generating participation for your employee engagement initiatives?
Yeah, so for us here at International SOS, we are trying to create more of a pull factor as opposed to a push factor. So the programs that we have are, well, they're basically tailored to make sure that it's something that the employees want, right? And that they are interested in participation and participating in it. So what we do is we get feedback from the employees as well as the managers, right, as to what they feel is going to be relevant to them. And more often than not, when we do have our global initiatives, we actually then get feedback from the ground to find out what's applicable to the respective countries. Because again, that's what I mentioned earlier, what is suitable in Myanmar may not be suitable in Singapore and in Mongolia. And obviously, culture is a big part that we need to take into consideration. One of the other things that I guess for being in international SOS, the advantage is we do have many medical practitioners, right? And today the hot topic is all about health and wellness and well-being. So we do what we provide to the clients is what we also do internally, whereby we have our medical professionals providing feedback, and we have an open channel to all our employees for them to reach out to our medical professionals, be it mental well-being, nutrition, and healthcare, right? So that's part of the offerings that we have to our employees, and we have created apps that are available online so that they can actually start monitoring their health and also have telemedicine consultation online on call. So that's how we've been getting our employees engaged. And as I said, we create the pull factor as opposed to a push factor. And obviously, there's a lot of buying from the top. All these initiatives are sponsored and also driven by our owners, right,
Yeah.
and our CEOs.
Okay, great to hear. And I think just drilling down on something you said, you gather feedback from, from the ground, right? So how do you go about doing that? What kind of tools do you leverage to get that feedback?
Yep. So we do have an engagement surveys that we do,
Yeah.
but also we take unofficial route of having one-to-one conversations and
Yeah.
reaching out to employees individually, right? And
Yeah.
we built this via a network because our people work in very remote sites.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's the managers and HR as well that we reach out to these employees and ask them how things are going, or if there's an incident that happens. Like, again, I'll use Myanmar for example, right? When there was an unrest that came up, immediately all managers are on board reaching out to all employees to find out what is it that they're going through, what is it that they need, what is it that we have to, support them in. So those are the kind of things that we do in terms of getting the feedback, and obviously, taking into consideration as well some of the legal requirements. So we engage third parties as well to
Yeah.
help us, get ideas, and also what's available and what's within the permit of
Yeah.
the countries.
Okay, cool. So I guess digital tools plays a really big part in that, right? So reaching out to them and being on time and collecting that information. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So moving on to my next question. A big part of employee experience is really about upskilling and the development of, the workforce. And for many employees, tools and technology sometimes can be a little bit of a roadblock. So my next question is for Chenglei. How do you ensure, the adoption of digital learning tools where employees want to learn, they want to upskill, but sometimes, the adoption of digital learning tools is kind of a challenge?
Yeah, so and especially given that everyone's virtual, we gotta
Yeah.
really change the way we engage in terms of training, right? Back then we had the luxury of launching a platform, huddling everyone into a classroom, and then we start training them in the classroom with these tools, and it's effective, and it's because it's in person, you can see people struggling physically, and you can give one-to-one guidance. But when you do this virtually, it's going to be very different because everyone's going to be behind a monitor. You can't have the same number of people in the room trying to assist individuals individually unless you book office hours or not in that. So there are a couple of trends that I've seen, right? One, of course, people are picking the tool that most of their customers are familiar with. They want something that there's some form of familiarity so that it's easy for people to pick up. And second, everyone is kind of digesting and breaking down the training sessions, the guides, the adoption materials into bite size. So, 3 to 4 minutes video in bite size, land them in different packages, in different communication channels, leverage on the pro side change management methodology, reinforce, get managers to reinforce the information, get them to ensure that their employees check through that they're not, I would say they use check, but just to make sure that they are flowing through and coping well, and learn and iterate from there, right? What are the missing information that has not been cascaded? What are the struggles? What are the FAQs? How can we re-emphasize and communicate those? So I think the whole training process has become more like a um, you like to call it a more iterative manner where you look behind and then you keep coming and revamp the way you're doing it, less of than a linear way where you deliver and then you land the product and you let your employees use it and you move on from that, right? So I think we just have to break things out into different phases, and as along the phase you just build upon the building blocks that you've done the previous time. And I think that's what's gonna make things easy for everyone. Even in Microsoft, that's what we are doing.
Yep, that's great to hear. So just to iterate, I mean, so firstly, choose something familiar. Do like short, 3 to 4 minute videos. Use multiple platforms to get that information out, and then iterate, right? So if something's not working, just like relook at it and try and implement something new. Got it. And Joyce, maybe I'll ask you the same questions as well. So I think in international SOS, right? How are you ensuring that people are picking up, these digital learning tools and upskilling themselves?
Yep. So obviously, being in the medical services industry, there are a lot of medical training that's required for our medical professionals to ensure that they are up to date, and also with the licensing and stuff like that. So what's happened is we've digitalized a lot of the trainings, right, to
Mm,
make sure, and we've partnered with various organizations to ensure that the digital training are certified, right, and applicable. Now, it's changing the mindsets of our medical professionals to start adopting this digital training, as opposed to, if you're doing a life-saving course, for example, you're used to being there in person and seeing your instructor and getting the instructions, right? So, what we've provided is also, tools again to make sure that when they're doing things virtually, it's convenient for them to communicate with the trainer, as well as for the trainer to be able to observe what it is that they're doing, right? So that's one. Now, the other thing about the new approach, and I wouldn't really say new approach, but the way that we are approaching digital learning and the tools, as what Cheng Wei had mentioned, is to create bite size, because working virtually for long hours, there's a tendency for people to have shorter attention spans.
Yeah.
So what happens is we create bite-sized training sessions, or we've created in-house a few applications, a few apps which are viewable on the phone, right, on the tablets, so that the employees, as and when they need, it's just a click of a button and they just read a one paragraph line, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of certifications, for example, we've distilled down the number of questionnaires that we need to go through to make sure that it's user friendly. And we also take into consideration, when we are using the digital tools, again, the multi languages that we have globally.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that, and we do it, right, that the questionnaires and the courses are translated to the native language of the countries that it's being pushed out to.
Yeah. Absolutely, and localization is definitely very important yeah, in this sense as well, right? But I mean, the
Yes.
key factor that both of you are talking about is really making sure that all the content is bite-sized and that you're sharing that through a digital platform. Cool.
Yep. Yep.
So moving on to the next question, I think it's very applicable for both international SOS and Microsoft, as you know, you're massive organizations, right? So how do you manage people's specific needs around well-being when you have a large number of employees? How do you still keep it personalized and kind of fit every employee's well-being differently? Cheng Lei, would you like to take that one first?
Yeah, there is this thing in Microsoft that we advocate, and we strongly drive this culture. We ask every employee to bring themselves to work and not make the work shape themselves, right? So you be your true authentic self when you are at work. And in order to do that, a lot is about building the right trust, the right empowerment within the organization. Technology plays a part of it. You learn the tools, you learn the various capabilities, in your organization, but you have to trust your employees to use them when they have to, and you empower them to say, hey, look, this is what I need, this is what I want, and this is how I want to do it. It's less off from a top-down approach on saying, hey, this is how we think that this is the right way to do things. Because we do have to understand everyone is facing quite an interesting situation or globally, because the lines where between work life and personal life is blurred as we work from home. There are just so much demand and distractions that might come along the way, and people at different phases of their life are facing different kind of challenges, right? It's not something that's only restricted to young parents or people who are elderly at home. Even young working professionals that has just joined the workforce are feeling their own onset of struggles, because they are also thinking about their career progression, their networking opportunity loss. So everyone is facing some form of distress, if you want to put that. So the key critical thing is, how do we build trust and empowerment so that everyone can then decide how they want to create, what's going to give them that sense of safety, right? And saying, this is I'm having control of what's happening around the world, happening around my work life and my personal life, and my organization is supporting me because I have the right tools, I have the right technology, I have the right resources, I know where they are, and I'll just leverage upon them as I need to. So it's a lot of trust that needs to come along the way, a lot of empowerment that needs to be built in order to make this successful.
Absolutely, and I love the fact that you're highlighting that we need to build trust with our employees and then empowering them with the right tools and technology to be successful, right? So Joyce, same question to you. So how does international SOS manage people's specific needs around well-being?
Right. I think Chingli did touch on quite a few critical points,
Yeah.
and I agree with them. So from international SOS standpoint, we do take well-being, employee well-being very seriously because it's actually also part of our bread and butter, which we support clients on, right, to ensure and to support clients in terms of their employee well-being. Now, within the organization and also with the clients that we've worked with, the well-being agenda is high on every CEO's list. It's not only the CHRO, but even the CEO, because we do see an impact in terms of the productivity and as well as the outputs from employees if the well-being is not looked into, right? So what we're doing is we can't run away from surveys. That's one thing, right? We need to have a baseline of understanding where people are today. Now, the surveys cannot be a once-off. So what we do, it's more or less a live a document, right? So how it starts first is to get the baseline to understand where employees are today, right? And the well-being is it's measured against the incumbents' mental well-being, physical well-being, and emotional well-being as well. And these questionnaires that we send out to our employees, and it's also used with the clients, used for the clients, is designed by our in-house psychologists and psychiatrists as well as nutritionists. So it's a whole stable of medical professionals that actually design these questionnaires, right? Now, once it's sent out to the employees to get their feedback, and obviously it's always done on a confidential basis, right? And the results and the outcome is shared in a report, and we see where are the red flags and where are the trigger points. Right? So then that's shared to the organization. So internally, we would have an idea of what, and we drill down by country, right, for international SOS. What are the trigger points in the countries? And whether it's the mental well-being or it's a physical situation or emotional situation, and we then try to address it accordingly. Now, an important step that we found is mm, you can give all the theory and the principles behind how a person should conduct themselves, what's their mental well-being. But what we found of late is, as what Jingle has said, personal life and work life is now so entrenched between, yeah, we're all working from home. The line is so blurred that you can't tell the difference anymore. And we found that many people do not realize that they are actually undergoing stress, mental stress or physical stress, right? Emotional stress. And the survey questions actually pick that out. So what we've done and what we've agreed is sometimes the incumbent themselves are not aware of it, but it's important for their teammates and their supervisors to be able to pick up when a person is in need of support or in need of guidance to manage the situation. So we provide training programs. So we call them mental wealth first aiders. So the
Yeah.
managers and HR and the department heads are provided or are put through a training program for them to be able to pick up the red flags and to train how they can actually have conversations with the incumbents, right? So this is what we do, and from the physical standpoint, like nutrition and all that, those we actually provide. It's part of our digital learning as well, bite size training and notes,
Yeah.
and conduct little competitions as well between the employees, like share with us what you're having, what do you think is safe, what's good. So stuff like that that we do in terms of managing the overall well-being of employees. It's a 360 approach that we are doing.
Yeah. Love to hear that. And I mean, it's great that you're focusing both on the mental and the physical side of well-being for employees, right? And then also, like you mentioned again, it's all about localization, so collecting data from each one of the countries, specific countries where your employees are based, and then coming up with a strategy for it, right? And then
Yep.
empowering the managers to reach out to them to ensure that everyone's looked after. So thank you for sharing those insights.
Yeah.
But I think that leads me to the next question, which is more on, after implementing these initiatives, right? So you've done all of this, the managers are reaching out to your employees, making sure that, they're doing well. How do you then measure the success, right, of these initiatives and how that impacts the business? So yeah, how do you measure the outcome of these EX initiatives? Are there metrics that your team tracks to measure the success?
Well,
Yeah, Joyce, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I'll just since it's a continuation of this. For us, we do the employee engagement surveys. So again, we will continue doing that. But what we have found is it's actually getting direct feedback from the employees. We follow up, right? So again, going back to the mental wellness aspects. So we do follow-ups with the incumbents that have reached out to us, to HR or to their managers to see how they're going. And the thing is, again, I mentioned about privacy and confidentiality, but if there are any red flags and they're supported by clinical psychologists and psychiatrists where required. And if there are any red flags that come up from those sessions, it's then communicated, and we will make sure that the person is supported all the way, right? So that's one aspect. The other thing is we actually measure the attrition to make sure or to even during this virtual time and all, as I think Chingley did touch on burnout, exhaustion, people questioning where they are going to go next, they want change and all that. So that's why the measurement of attrition is key for us to make sure that what we are doing in terms of employee engagement is working. So we measure that constantly, and I'll be very transparent and say and also share that there are certain places where we have seen a spike in attrition, right? But as soon as we identify that, then we zoom in and we see what is it that we need to do more of, right? So that's one thing that we do, and the other thing that we also measure is our service quality results. So the service quality results actually is measured from the feedback that we get from the international SOS clients, because I think for those of you who are familiar with our business, we do have our assistance business where we have call centers, and also our medical staff that are on client sites. So we get feedback from clients in terms of service quality, and where we found high service quality results, we have very engaged employees. So those are basically the key areas that we look at in terms of measuring the success of our programs.
Yeah, thanks for that transparent sharing. I mean, just to summarize, I mean, you said employee surveys, following up with, the incumbents, so having that one-on-one approach, also looking at something like attrition as a metric as well, and how employee experience affects that. I think those are all great ways that we can pick up to measure the success of employee initiatives, employee experience initiatives. So Cheng, I think quickly to hear from you actually. I mean, how are your clients, customers, measuring the outcome of their EX initiatives? Would love to hear from you.
Yeah. No, I'll share an example in Microsoft where we
Yeah.
run this thing called Microsoft Pulse. We randomly pick a bunch of employees every day, and then we send them a survey to see how they are reflecting and seeing the values of the organization. I spotted this interesting trend. Back then, it was about manager effectiveness, how proud are you to work with the organization. The recent ones that I've received, we got this additional question popping up asking us how are we finding that we have the right tools to support us? Do we feel comfortable working? Are there anxieties that are being created? Are you feeling that you're working longer than usual? So that a lot of these well-being questions are coming along the way. And these are quick pulse that we do daily. We kind of plot them again, a chart and a graph for us to see where the trends is heading. And it gives us a good sensing across the board on how our employees are some of the measures that we're putting in shifting the needle, are people picking up the spikes along the way as well.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I think just to highlight what you said, right? I think asking people, how they're happy with technology and tools is so important now, especially when everyone's working from home. So I think going forward, that needs to be organizations need to focus on that a lot more, right? So Thank you for sharing all those really interesting insights. I'm sure the audience, has learned a lot and gained some valuable insights through that. So moving on to the next section now. I know, Chenglei, that you prepared like a presentation for our attendees to show them, like some of the exciting things that you're doing with some of your customers. So I'll hand over the time to you to take you to let you take them through the presentation.
Sure, thanks, Josh. So
Thanks.
yeah, so just to want to share with everyone on some of the capabilities that Microsoft has innovated and introduced to our customers over the last few months to just help everyone, better react and better support the employees in your organization as a whole. And a lot of our innovation went into Microsoft Teams because we recognize that that's a central platform where employees are on. It's something familiar. It's where they're working every day and collaborating with one another. And it's kind of important that we leverage upon the platform to do more. And I like to give this example. I see the Microsoft Teams ecosystem like a mobile phone. You get the phone off the shelf, you go into the App Store, you install applications that you will enjoy and you love, and every time you look at each other's phone, when just like you open up your friends or your family members' phone, you realize that they're all interestingly different. It reflects your personality, it reflects who you are, what are things that matters to you. So just like Microsoft Teams ecosystem, we built the platform such that it allows organizations to bring in their own applications, bring in their own solutions to kind of build up the culture that they want to build within their organization, and to help our customers, accelerate in this creation of custom solutions, applications that could better engage our employees. We partner with a few organizations out there and we publish what we call a series of Teams app templates. So these are ready to make solutions that any organization, they can just download them, have them installed within their own ecosystems and get their employees to leverage them on Teams itself. That we have a huge library of them, but I'm just going to bring your focus to four key applications that I want to share today. Right? We have what we call the HR support app, amazing application that would help you engage your employees, especially with a lot of changes in terms of COVID regulations, changes in terms of safe distancing measures. How do you make sure that you bring the most important information to your employees as quickly as possible, right? We have Icebreaker app, which allows you to connect your employees virtually, pairing them up to meet up with someone, just like how we have networking sessions after a conference, right? You will meet someone, say hi, get a quick 30 minutes, 5 minutes, just to connect with the individuals to see how they are. I have customers who said that they in time they were matched with someone that they knew. What they did was they just, it could be just a 5 minutes click on the chat and say, how are you doing? Are things going well for you? It's a quick check-in with your colleague just to see how things are. You might not want to spend you might not need to spend 30 minutes in another meeting just to catch up and know someone. It could be a quick 5 minutes check-in just to let you feel connected, right? So it's also some of those soundbite to let each your colleagues know that they're getting supported. We have workplace awards, allowing employees to nominate their colleagues for awards and have them recognized virtually across the teams within Microsoft Teams itself. And we have what we call the new employee onboarding application. So it's a curated experience where you put your employees through for them to actually walk through some of those key things that you would have usually done in a physical onboarding session, right? Letting them know that they might have to get their equipment set up, where are the links, how do they get help. They might need to procure headsets, they might need to procure home devices to support their virtual office at home. How do they go around doing that? Where are the different links, the resources? New employee onboarding today is not just about the training materials, about the culture of the organization, the on-job training that we think about. It's also including the technical aspects of it. How do we get the devices set up? How do we get the home office equipped? How do we make sure that you know who are the right people that you can reach out to for support? I know this is a lot to digest, but what I've done is I want to make this meaning. I want to show everyone how some of these applications work in teams, and hopefully that gives you a better understanding of what I'm trying to say. So I'm just going to quickly switch over here into my demo environment over here. So here I have with me here, my Teams ecosystem. And if I go into my chat over here, I'm showing you an example of how the icebreaker app will look like. On a monthly basis, once a month, I've set it up and say, hey, look, it's going to match me with another colleague that's part of my team. And I could come in and say, I would like to chat with the individual. Let's have a quick chat. Or I just hit this button, it opens up a new chat conversation with Johanna, and I can have a conversation with the individual. I could even use this and come in and say, let's propose for the meetup. Let's set up a Teams meeting to connect 5-10 minutes. And speaking about empowerment and making sure that people are comfortable with it, of course, if I might want to take a break from all this because I might want to keep personal time to myself. I'm trying to take time off. I could pause it. I have control over what I'm trying to do, but it also gives me the option to engage with my colleagues, to know my colleagues when I want to. This is one example, the Icebreaker app. The other example I want to share with everyone is what we call the HR support. So there are times where you're trying to look for help, you're trying to ask for individuals to. You might have a question top of mind, for example, over here. You are trying to say, hey, how can I, when can I return back to office? For example, right? These are some of the questions that people are asking. Um, you can create a application about here, pre-prompt some of the questions. If the response is not sufficient, you can send in your question by asking an expert and say, I'm the question could be, I'm having my home office is not ideal. Can I request to return to office? Right? I send it a question over here. It's going to pose this question to HR professionals that are managing this behind the scenes, managing all these questions. Behind the scenes within teams, we have what we call a human resource team setup. In this, we get the questions that are coming through. I could, as an individual, as an expert over here, say I'm going to, should I pick up um, this particular action item? For example, I'm going to change the status. And what do I want to assign it to me, or is this good to close? I could go directly and chat with the individual that are asking me for help over here, and say, and respond to the question. I might not know the question, but I might know who is the right person who could address this. I could come into the reply comment box over here and bring in Alex and say, can we take this question? So there are a lot of all these things that we're putting in here just to make sure that we are turning around much faster. We're trying to help employees get much faster in terms of getting their responses. We're trying to help HR professionals as well, thinking of their well-being, making sure that they are also they are also managing this increase in workload of demand from the customers, from their customers, which is their internal employees, more effectively as well. The other thing that I want to speak about beyond all these applications that you see as part of that template is we've introduced that we have launched Microsoft Viva. It's a huge. There are many things in Microsoft Viva, but one of the most favorite application that I use every day is called Viva Insights. In Teams itself, if you open up Viva Insights, this is the reason why I love it. It gives me personal insight to build better working habits. It tells me what are the things that I need to do, what are some of the outstanding tasks that I have. I get protected focus time for me to, it blocks my calendar automatically every 2 hours every day for me to focus on the things that matter for me, whether it's learning, whether it's that I should clear my emails, making sure that I'm not overwhelmed with back-to-back meetings every day. We partner with Headspace and we brought in mindfulness. You could come in here to do a quick wind down for the day before you wrap up. We have what we call a virtual commute. That means, in the past, you will commute back home, and then as part of that action, you might want You might say, okay, I have a couple of things that I need to do tomorrow. Let me just prep the content, so on and so forth. We give you the same set of experience through the virtual commute, and this is an amazing way for you to wind down, to let yourself know that I'm all in good control, and I'm all ready and prepared for the day ahead. And last but not least, staying connected. It tells you who are the individuals that are important in your network. It will prompt you to say, hey, look, you have not connected with the individual over the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Maybe it's time to catch up. Just get a one-on-one 30 minutes just to say hi, just to see how things are doing with people. Just making sure that you are still part of that entire ecosystem, right? Because there's always that phrase, if you're out of sight, you're out of mind. So how do we make sure that we're constantly be part of someone's radar to say that we are here to help, things are going fine, and let's reach out if you may need support along the way as well. So with that, I'm just going to leave this one slide over here. These are all the links to the different applications that I speak about. There's just so many of them that we are bringing into Teams. I just can't cover all of them today, and definitely not giving justice to what it brings with this short demonstration. And if, in any case, if anyone is interested to know more, reach out to us, reach out to your Microsoft contact person, reach out to us on Microsoft. We're happy to help. A lot of information is available on these links as well. Partner with your IT administrator to make this happen, and we can all reshape employee experience together as a whole. With that, I'll pass the time back to Josh.
Thank you very much, Chenglei. Thank you for sharing that really hands-on, demonstration. I mean, I've used Teams before in the past, and I'm just blown away by all these new tools and bots that you have, especially highlighting, the safe return to work, with everyone also, being hired remotely now with remote onboarding. I think the icebreaker tool is super interesting. Yeah. So I think just moving on now to my kind of closing question for the both of you before we jump into audience Q&A, because we do have a lot of questions from the audience. What's next for EX? So what are some opportunity areas that you see in, kind of amplifying the impact of employee experience efforts? Joyce, would you like to take this first?
Yeah, sure. Well, what's next is we need to start preparing people to come back to the office, right? 2 years back, it was trying to get people ready and comfortable working from home. But now it's the other way around, right? Trying to get people to come back to the office and making sure that the office environment is suitable for people to come back to. Now, what we've noticed is there is anxiety for employees to come back to the office. And the anxiety is driven by many factors, right? One is obviously how safe is it to come back to the office, right? Is it okay for me to be in large groups? Is it okay for me to be commuting, especially for those who have to take public transport? And the other question is, not everyone is vaccinated. Is it safe for me to come back to an environment where there may be some people who are not vaccinated, right? And depending on the legislation of the country, such information is confidential. So there's always going to be that question about, okay, do I know if my colleague that's sitting next to me is safe? And then there's the other flip side whereby some people have got elderly parents or family members who are not vaccinated, that they will return back to their homes and they may impact those family members, right? So we need to take into account all those concerns and consideration. And from international SOS standpoint, we are making sure that the return to office setup is done ahead of the actual physical return, right? So we have got policies and procedures in place. Again, all the policies and procedures that we put in place and how we set up the office is with the consultation of our medical experts to ensure that what are the equipment and what are the safety PPEs that we need to provide to our employees for them to safely return, what kind of test kits. So those things taken into account. And the other thing that we do provide is we have got the employee assistance programs that we push, and well, I say push is because in this part of the world, in Asia, taking up the employee assistance program is something which people are not that comfortable with, right? Having to speak to a counselor or psychiatrist is not as easily accepted as what I see with my counterparts over in Europe and the Americas. So we remind employees that if they're not feeling comfortable for whatever reason, to reach out to our EDP status and to get proper guidance and counseling for them to be able to operate comfortably and safely when they do return to the office. The last point that I want to touch base on, or to cover, is in terms of their employee engagement. It's a life uh, it's it's a live document, right? It's a live activity. It's not one size fit all, and
Yes.
we need to continuously monitor and follow up. And even this return to office policies that we have, it's reviewed almost on a bi-weekly basis, right? It's a live document. We cannot have something in this day and age that's static. So that's where I see, moving forward in terms of the employee engagement.
Yeah. Great to hear. And also, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of questions that your employees are going to be asking you, right? So it just popped into my mind the HR support bot that like Cheng was showing
Oh
us now.
yes,
So
yes.
you're getting all
I
these
can tell
questions
you.
coming in.
When I saw that, I was like, ooh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to get a few calls from me to see how I can set that up over here. But we do use Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
So that's a platform that International SOS is using.
Yeah. And great. And so how you leverage those tools, right, to support you with the safe return to work. So same question to you, Cheng Lei. What are, kind of the opportunity areas that you've seen amplifying the impact of EX efforts?
Yeah, so as far as in Microsoft, we have been very focused on making sure that we are redesigning a lot of our tools, our productivity tools, to support what we call a hybrid work.
Yep.
Um, Joyce brought out a lot of great top of mind, right? How do we make sure that things are safe in their for people to return back to office? How do we make sure technology plays a part here? So that's the question we're thinking for Microsoft. Some of those things that we are working hard on making sure that we're bringing in the coming months is about things like um, capacity notification. You walk into a meeting room, you join a Teams meeting, and if the room is set for 4 people, you have 5 people in the room, it's going to pop up a banner and tell you there's too many people in the room. Someone should actually join the meeting through their laptop from the desk. We want to make sure things are touchless. How do we make sure controls, meeting rooms, equipment can be controlled directly remotely on your own personal mobile phones? So you remove common touch points as a whole. You want to make sure that people are comfortable, they can stay within, they make sure that they know that the equipments that they're using are sanitized, and these are personal equipments, they're not shared. But it helps to give employees a comfort of mind, right? We were also in the coming months coming out with other solutions. For example, simple things like um, RSVPing for meetings. Today it's all about saying I'm attending. That's it. We are saying, okay, how do we give employees now the option to say that I'm attending virtually, empowering them to inform others that, hey, I would like to join the meeting, but I'm going to do it virtually because I'm not comfortable to be in such a large meeting in person, or I'm not comfortable to be back in office yet. And by making sure that you set the expectation upright with others, and making sure the technology allows you to do that. Because when the technology allows you to do that, you're giving people the empowerment to say you have the rights to say so, and that makes things much easier for people to kind of cope with the change and that pivot from remote working into what we call a hybrid working environment as a whole.
Absolutely. So I think the key thing that you said here was like really empowering people with the technology to navigate the new world of remote working and a hybrid workforce. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. So thanks for those last insights. I think what we'll do now is we'll move on to the Q&A. We do have quite a few questions. So let's take the first question from the audience. I think since we were just talking about it just before, one of the questions is, how can we create an experience which is personalized to each person, especially in the hybrid work setup, right? right? And the question is more about asking for practical insights. That would be really helpful. So, Joyce, would you like to take this one first?
Yep, sure. Well, it's obviously quite challenging, especially if it's a large organization with many people, right? So, one of the things that we do try to um, do is to make sure that everyone is actually a people manager, to train them up, because there's no way that you can expect one function to be supporting all the employees, right? So what we do encourage is to make sure that our supervisors and managers are trained to be able to, communicate both to their teams and back to their managers and also back to HR. So it's a collaboration and it's a network of communication between all the parties. And obviously, we do encourage employees to have an open channel to HR as well as to their direct managers. Now, what we do is we do initiate virtual tea times where we just get people together and just chat about everything except work. So we get the GMs to host a comfortable number of people and just chat with them and say, oh, how things are going, how's the family, if there's a new family member coming up into the picture, we ask how they are. And remember, as I mentioned earlier, we recognize that in order to get employees engaged, we need to also engage with their families. So that's how we do it, right? Through a lot of matrix networking. And I don't want to say use a survey because surveys is very impersonal. So that's why
Yeah.
we really leverage a lot on just touching base, pinging each other, and just finding out informally what's going on.
Yeah. And I think a big part of personalizing that experience is bringing in their families, right? Like what you were just mentioning. So, Tingley, how about you? So, how does Microsoft, personalize employee experience for each employee?
Yeah, we leverage on all the data points that we get out of our Microsoft 365 ecosystem.
Yeah.
From the personal front, I kind of spoke about and shared a bit on what we call Viva Insights, right? Where you give you personalized insights about my own working habit. I'm guilty for sending emails after office hour. We have on Viva Insight what we call quiet hours. So you don't send anything after office hour. You don't check your emails. You don't attend meetings. You just give yourself time to recharge. And it gives me a chart and it says which are the days that I truly had a quiet hours and which are the days that I didn't. And these are powerful insights because now I am saying, hey, I'm seeing difference in what I'm trying to do. It prompted me to add this disclaimer whenever I send a message on Teams or message over email to say that I work flexibly and I don't expect you to receive a message when you get it, because I'm now because I'm mindful that I have a very different working pattern. I like to work, late towards the night when I have quiet hours, but I do start my day a little bit later than usual. So I want to make sure that I'm getting I leverage on these insights and I make action out of it. Beyond the personal aspects of it, we also have what we call the manager front of the insights that we provide as part of the Viva Insight platform, where managers can see some of the trends that are seen within their own organization, and and try to build a culture within within their teams to say, how can we shape this? How can we move towards certain milestones? Well, it's not about seeing what your employees are doing. It's about helping your employees work better and be aware about some of the common things that are driving some over burnout within the team itself. Because one of those interesting thing that we have built or we have realized is that we originally started with what we call well-being days, where we allow employees to take well-being days whenever they feel they need a time for themselves. But we also picked up that because there's so many meetings that are coming along the way, people are not comfortable in doing it. So we started having Asia-wide well-being days. That means our Asian CVP comes in and say we're dedicated no meeting on these days across the whole of Asia, and it's you are free to take a well-being day if you want to, right? Because everyone's not going to have a meeting. You're not going to feel that you're going to miss out something. And because we work within the time zone most of the time, it helps. It reduces the stress altogether.
Oh, thanks for sharing this insight. I think what I kind of took away from that was that it's not about the data and understanding what your working hours are like, but it's also what do you do with that data, right? And how do you then improve that employee experience for each person? Cool. So another question from the audience is, how are the speakers identifying the technological needs of employees before trying to fill that gap? So how are you identifying what kind of tools they need before you provide it to them? Joyce, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we do first is actually talk to our IT guys. What is applicable for the respective countries, right? So I give you an example. When we were rolling out Microsoft Teams, we couldn't do it immediately across all the countries at one go. We had to actually stagger the implementation because we needed to, work with IT to understand what are the capabilities within each of the countries, and then also identify what are the existing tools that we have in all those various countries, right? So we start clustering and batching them together. So whenever we are rolling out technology, we do work together with IT, and then coupled with also working with the respective countries to make sure that the platform is something which employees would be comfortable using. So for example, even using things like WhatsApp or WeChat and all that, we need to actually make sure that it's something which the country is comfortable with using, right? So as we all know,
Yep.
different countries have got different preferences. So we do look at that aspect in terms of when we are rolling out any of the digital programs or how we reach out to people. And the other thing that we also look at is what are the government regulations, right? So as you know, most countries with vaccination, we get digital certificates, but
Yep.
the certificates, especially when we've got a mobile community here in International SOS, and our people fly from one country to another. So we needed to find a platform that would be able to read or to recognize the various certificates from all the different countries.
Okay.
So we've had to do something like that then, and to also enable safe entry into the office workspace.
Okay. Thanks for sharing, Joyce. So, I mean, on the topic of rolling out new technologies, right? So, how do you encourage team members to adopt new technologies? So, just now, Cheng Lei, you shared, about the Icebreaker app and the Workplace Awards. How do you, encourage your team members or team members in general to adopt these technologies? Cheng
Yeah,
Lei.
well, yes. One of the most easiest way to get people to adopt technology is to bake the technology into their workflow. Put it introduce it at areas where people are leveraging it, making it easy and accessible. So instead of introducing 15 systems with 15 different URLs or applications that they have to install and launch, bring it into one. And it helps because I'm just going to throw this off here. If anyone could have just help bring up my screen share, I'm happy to show you how this can kind of stay in the flow as a whole because I think seeing it is better than anywhere that I'm explaining it as a whole, right? If I can get a minute.
I mean, we've got like 2 minutes left, so
Okay.
if you can, yeah, maybe next time.
Yeah, no worries. No,
We can do a
I was just
follow-up
about
one.
to show you how you could
Yeah,
just immediately when it's just as part of your reply in your threaded comments and say, hey, that's how you can actually just create a workplace awards and give an award to someone who have done the work and posted this
yeah.
file directly on Teams. You don't have to fire off something else. It's just right there. The button is just right below the comment box as a whole.
Absolutely, and that goes back to what both of you were saying before about keeping the technology that you choose something familiar that people know how to use, right? And within the flow of work. Cool. So I think the final question, just before we wrap up, last one is, what are the shifts required for a digital environment, and what are some of the functional and digital skills required? Joyce, would you like to take this? Just a quick sort of answer to that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. It's quite a long question there, but I think we need to see again where the baseline is, right, of
Yeah.
every of the people, and then from there build up where are the gaps, and actually have a vision of where we want to go. So
Mm,
then that's how you can actually make it applicable to our employees, and also it will have a good ROI from the company standpoint, right?
Absolutely. I've just got to know from the team that we do have a couple more minutes for Q&A because there are really a lot of questions. So yeah, maybe Qinglei, did you want to quickly share your screen to show everyone what you're talking about?
Oh yes, if you could give me a second, let me just bring that up again.
But yeah, going back to your point, Joyce, about identifying those gaps and then having a clear vision to work towards. I think that's really important. And then obviously, how to use tools to then implement all of those initiatives, right? Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
Okay, we have Cheng's screen.
So I was just talking about this, right? Usually this is what happens as you collaborate. Someone let you know that something is done, the data is there. You want to you want to say, you want to acknowledge the person's effort. You want to nominate the person for an award. I could come in here in the employee manager over here, and I will be able to search for a new application over here called Workplace Awards.
Yeah.
And right directly over here, I can hit nominate, and it's going to allow me to select individuals that the individual that I would like to nominate for. So take an example, I might want to nominate best contributor and maybe Alex, right, for helping this and say for putting the data together in record speed. I'm going to put this out. I get an icon of how the award look like. I'm going to put it in here. And everyone else that's collaborating on the same thread now could come in and endorse the award and say, I agree with this. And behind the scene, we'll see all this endorsement, we'll see all this award and nomination popping up. And towards the end of the year, we could leverage on all this nomination and decide who we're going to give the award to. So you're going to kind of look at it as it's within the same ecosystem that the employees are using it. It's within the same flow. You're not getting out into another system. Keeping things in the flow helps, right? And just making sure. And we want to make sure that we're bringing technologies to help. There are 5 different generations in the workforce today. We want to make sure that we create opportunities for people to interact and to connect with one another and recognize one another's working habit.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's super helpful, right? And especially highlighting what you said about, there are, what did you say, 5 generations of workers in the workforce now. I think that's absolutely mind-blowing, right? Okay, cool. So I think with that, we've kind of come to the end of our session. And, really massive thank you to our audience and to you, Joyce and Qinglei, for taking the time to share all your insights with us today. So it was my pleasure hosting you both. And I'll be wrapping up this session for today. So please stay tuned to your inbox for details of upcoming sessions and virtual learning sessions. So everyone, please have a great day ahead, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Thanks again, Joyce and Qinglei.
All right. Thank you.